Hey everybody, how's it going? Welcome to what is Fabrizio arbitrarily inking at any given time. It's evening, so I start inking. Figured I'd do a stream. And currently, I am working on a page of issue 4 by Horace H. Hoover, by me. So this is the page. I figured I'd show the pencils. This is Slurp ripping through a car. A little bit of a spoiler, but what are you going to do? So I figured I'd show the pencils before I start inking and moving stuff around. Put some music on. Sorry about that. All right. Lo-fi nights. There we go. Alrighty. If that's too loud, let me know. Using a brand new brush today. So a brand new brush. It's just Winsor Newton Series 7. It's a series that I always use, but it's a brand new brush. Excuse me. But yeah, using a new brush is like, it would be like putting new strings on a guitar. It would be like cracking open a book or a computer for the first time. It's a great feeling. And then when you put the brush on the page, quickly find out that maybe this wasn't the brush for you. So we'll see. All right, I think we're good. So I hope everybody's having a good Monday. Mondays usually go pretty quick for me. Always drags in the middle. So the most recent pages that I've been doing for Horace H. Hoover, I've really been making a conscious effort to be a little more bold. Hold on one second. It says my connection's unstable. If anybody lets me, if there's any problems, let me know. Okay. Anyway, so my inking style, not that it's changing, but I'm just trying to, on the margins, sort of like nudge it in a particular direction. You know, I'm 4 issues into this, so I can definitely start to see certain things in a different light. You know, after you have after you're forced to draw and ink certain scenarios or locations in a particular style, things, I'm not going to call them weaknesses, but, you know, things sort of reveal themselves. And sometimes it's just like you don't like drawing that thing in your style. If that makes any sense. So because of that, I'm really trying to just nudge my style a little bit. One of the things is use of blacks. I'm really trying to push darker blacks, more bold lines. So we'll see. And for a drawing like this, there's a lot of kind of fiddly detail. So you can't really skimp. Not that you want to skimp, but you want to, like the eternal struggle is describing something with as few lines as possible. Economy, right? And a lot of times, readers of comics, consumers, they're looking for the most amount of detail. So as artists, we're trying to have as few lines as possible to describe something, and readers are really looking for all those little fine details. So that can be an issue. I think tastes change too as a consumer, for sure. As a consumer, you might start out liking, I don't know, McFarlane stuff with a lot of just sort of noodly detail, and then you might start looking at Kirby and then Romita, and you kind of get an appreciation for the old stuff. And not because it's old, but because, there was a reason that they were sort of the masters of it. They could tell a story with with far less description. I'm looking at some old Conan, Savage Sword of Conan from back in the day, Buscema, who's mine and many, many others' favorite artist. But I'll never get anywhere near the economy of line for his anatomy. He can show a bicep with a few brush strokes. Leg muscles, just the shape of the leg muscle actually defines the form of it. So it's kind of humbling whenever you look at that stuff, and you try to take what you can and try to use it in your own work if you can. Panel like this it's definitely a treat for the artist as well. Leading up to this, there's some pretty high panel pages, lots of buildings and sort of architecture and things that you just have to do. It might not be the most fun thing to do in the world. So when you get to do these pages, it's nice. It's nice for the reader and the artist, though. You get to have some fun. I'm not overly concerned about. Well, it's not that you're not concerned about perspective. It's just you don't have to worry about the perspective as much. You only have one character and one car. And granted, each limb, sorry, each limb, each figure might have multiple plane breaking. So, perspective is always it's always there regardless, but especially with a big action scene like this, it's okay to fudge it a little bit. if it if it makes the action a little more energetic, more dynamic, then just do it. I would not fret over that. This scene in particular is pretty fun because Slurp hasn't done anything quite like this before. So it's kind of a bigger reveal of his powers, what he can do. So that's fun. I just got the Transformers Compendium 1. And these compendiums are pretty great. I have to admit, I'm not a huge fan of collected works, depending on what it is. And I have some of the floppies for the Transformers run, the original, the Marvel run, but I don't have them all. They get pretty expensive, depending on what you're getting. And the collected stuff, usually, I'm not a fan of it because it's usually heavy stock, gloss paper, and when you have, hundreds, and in this case, there's 1,000 pages, it gets difficult to read. Like, opening up the spine, it's very difficult to actually read. It's not comfortable. I don't like breaking my spines for my books, so it makes it almost impossible sometimes. But these compendiums, there's a G.I. Joe compendium, there's a Transformers compendium. It's a real lightweight paper, probably 50 or 60. And it's newsprint or newsprint-like, so like bending the pages is easy. It's comfortable to read. Really, highly recommend it. Yeah, as far as, my style and what I'm doing, again, I'm trying not to be as noodly. So it's definitely a sort of a tightrope walking. Certain scenarios call for it, and other times it just looks messy or confusing and unnecessary. This torn cars, like I said, it can get pretty noisy and confusing quickly, so we'll see. With a brush, you can be pretty expressive. This is a torn tire, so you can really, you actually don't want to, you want to be as loose as you can for something like that. You would be surprised how few photographs there are of the undersides of cars from this time period. There's about 1 million from every other angle, but not from underneath. It was a struggle. And in the end, you want to be accurate as much as you can, but you can't spend 2 weeks on a drawing because you're trying to find the underside of a Chevy from 1920. Hey Kiba, how's it going? Thanks for popping in. I think everybody's at Heroes Con right now. Which I've never been to. Have you? I heard it's a good time. Not entirely sure I like that. In fact, I'm pretty sure I don't like it. Alright, so I'm gonna go black and see if I like that any better. If I don't, then this will be a very quick turnaround. Yeah, I don't know about that. It's kind of, I don't think that's going to work. Glad I can make it tonight. I have not been at Heroes Con yet. One day we'll be there. It's on the list. Yeah, just getting crazy from the heat and starting freak out mode for our next event, July 3 to 5. What's your next event? Oh, wow, over the 4th of July weekend, too. Okay, so that's a giant failure. This was looking good. That is not. Alright, so this is just... I'm just going to kind of mess around a little bit. So, if you do mess up something like that, this is on blue line. It's not a big deal. I mean, you don't want to be redoing this stuff 1,000 times. But what I do is I try to go through the whole page and see if there's any other areas that are not as well defined that I think might be trouble areas, and kind of play around with that. Like, I think that stuff will be fine. I think, you know, his hand... Yeah, this brush is... yeah, sometimes you try to be loose and you just kind of mess it up, which is fine. Sometimes when you make an effort to be loose and you get a really cool happy accident, and the other times you get a happy, an unhappy accident, which is fine. Yeah, I don't know if there's really any other areas. World Beard and Mustache Championships. It's being held at Heinz Hall. It's a big charity thing. Benefits children. Oh, that's cool. I haven't heard of that. I'll have to check that out. Artsy Bible nerd. So you're saying we should keep the whiteout close by. So here's my thing. I rarely use whiteout. Just because I never feel it's in really minor places I'll use whiteout. But like for his face, I wouldn't like white it out again and then ink over it. I just started the drawing, you know. It's not a huge deal. You know, for me, whiteout would be like, oh, I took a line too far, or like really small things. But something like that, it's too much. It's on the face, and I just feel like if I put a bunch of whiteout on it and then I tried to paint over it, it wouldn't go on as smooth as it normally does, and I think it would just be kind of lumpy. And you really want his face to be like a centerpiece. So that being said, all right, well, this was a good stream. No, it's fine. Like I said, just use it as a practice. See if there's any other areas that you think will be an issue, and kind of practice on that. This is where people are like, why don't you use digital? Because if you did digital, you could just undo it. And that's technically true. I could just undo it. Just not as fun for me. So even if I mess these things up, it is what it is. Now, I will say this. If I had done the whole page and I was at the final stages of it, and I did something like that, I would figure out a way to keep it. It's a rare occurrence that I would finish a page and restart it from scratch. I can usually tell how the page is going to turn out pretty quickly. Yeah, I am in the middle of another inking page. I could just pull that out. Excuse me. Okay, so this, it might be kind of obvious what's happening in the scenario, but I'll just jump to this page I was already in the middle of. The reason I jumped to that other page is there's a lot of straight lines and bricks and architectural stuff that it gets pretty monotonous pretty quick. So I try to find something else to jump around to. So if it gets too monotonous, I jump on that, and I'll come back to this, do some architectural stuff. I'm definitely gonna look into refining my style, like I said. A bit different style. Hey, Ara, how's it going? Thanks for popping in. You just missed me failing miserably and having to abandon a page 15 minutes into it. I think I saw you at Plastic City last time, Ara, right? I think, when is that? I feel like it's coming up soon. Can't make it this year. I'm thinking about maybe doing, I can't do it for issue 5 of Horse H. Hoover, but for some other project I have potentially lined up, doing watercolor. So the whole book would be a very simple but loose watercolor and pen. It's a style that I currently have to work in for something else non-comic related. So it's kind of got me itching to do that for comics. I might start with some covers first, see how it goes. I was paging through The Art of Hellboy the other day, which in my head I'm like, oh, The Art of Hellboy, I bought that like 15 years ago. And then I looked at the date and it was like 2002 or 3 or something like that. So in my head it was 15 years. In actuality it was 22 years ago, which is frightening. But anyway, I was looking through that again because that was a huge influence on me when it came out. You know, I had seen Mignola's work, obviously Hellboy and the Marvel stuff, but there's some stuff in that Art of Hellboy which is kind of unique that I haven't seen anywhere else, because there are some watercolors. There's maybe 4 or 5 watercolor paintings of Hellboy in there, and I absolutely love them. They're by far my favorite Hellboy artwork. You know, he goes to the flat digital coloring, and I can't help it. Every time I see those watercolors, they're so nice. I highly recommend it. I think the book's pretty affordable. I don't think it ever went out of print or anything like that, but if you're a Mignola fan, highly recommend it. Kibo, finding my style. That's something I keep meaning to do for myself. Maybe some year. Yeah, I mean, I do think that styles just ultimately evolve. And I think if you're not paying attention, it can evolve for the worse. So I'm just trying to get ahead of that as much as I can and direct it as much as I can. I actually did a video, it's probably been a couple of years, on style, like my thoughts on what makes a style and how you get there. I thought it was interesting. I kind of came up with a little formula, because some people just say, well, style, it just happens. And I've always hated the sort of vague answers to things in art. It's always bugged me. At least try to come up with an answer that you can take some sort of action on. So for me, I'm like, well, I mean, look at an artist that you like, and I will take, I don't know, I mean, we'll use Mignola. If you really like that style, and that's something that you want to mimic or at least come close to, the first thing you really want to do is check out the tools. What is he using? That's a big part of it. Then subject matter, that's a big part of it. And obviously your skill, but there's a lot of things that you can actually sort of input to get a style, instead of just well, don't force it, it'll happen one day, and blah blah blah. You definitely don't want to pick a style that you're constantly fighting with. To me, that's a nightmare. You want to find a style that you feel comfortable doing, that actually looks like something you're trying to achieve, elicits the response you're looking for. So there's a lot of things that go into picking or finding a style, other than one day you will wake up and have a style. So it's funny, not funny. I did the pencils for these. I scanned them into Blue Line. And as soon as I printed it out, I'm like, I don't like the pose of these characters. So I redrew them on the Blue Line to have a little more presence. Definitely different feel than the original. So it kind of gives me one more chance to fix things. I will say this, the one thing I'm lucky is, with Horace H. Hoover, I don't have like a sci-fi setting. Not really, nothing like that. I don't think I could freehand all of the architecture needed for a sci-fi location. This is New York in the 20s. Things are wobbly and crooked and Yeah, I'll probably do a short stream. Darn it. So I was listening to somebody, and they were talking about they had read, I don't know, dozens and dozens of books or whatever recently. And, you know, as someone who used to read a lot, and now most of my reading it's more like homework than anything. It's, you know, research for writing. It's books and things that will basically help me either be a better artist or a writer. But anyway, not to complain about that, but most of my reading isn't, you know, it's not fun. It's more like homework. And somebody was, you know, sort of bragging or boasting about reading so many books. And I'm like, well, here's the kicker. If you're a kid or if you're in college and you have a bunch of free time, then yeah, it's actually worth, I would say, bragging. But if you're my age, and I'm pretty old, and you're reading that many books, I'd say, I don't know. Shouldn't you be doing something else than consuming just books? I feel like there should be something else at that point. Yeah, I don't know. So I thought it would be funny if I'm like, you know what, I'm going to read 40 books by the end of the year. And I was going to buy a whole set of Hardy Boys books and read 38 Hardy Boys books. And then I would read, you know, 2 or 3 sort of what I call real books, maybe philosophy or history or something like that. And then whenever I talk to people, I'd be like, I read 42 books this year. But just leave out the fact that 38 of the 42 was the Hardy Boys. Because I'm not lying. I mean, these are books, technically. So, you know, I'll just say, yeah, man, I read 42 books. I read, you know, The Rise and Fall of the Roman Empire. I read Founding Brothers, and some other great ones. But just leave out the other books. So that's my goal. And then if I'm pressed on the other books, I'm like, oh man, there's so many. You know what? I'll write a list and I'll email it to you later. I actually just finished a book by David Stewart. He has a YouTube channel and all that stuff. He does a bunch of stuff, but mainly he's a writer, sort of commentates on pop culture, all sorts of stuff, philosophy. And he does a series of fantasy books. I think he does other stuff too, but it was good. It's called Needle and Ash. It took me way longer to read than I'd hoped, but like I said, most of my books they're homework, so I can't really just lounge about on a Saturday reading, though I would like to. Hey man, literacy is literacy. I tend not to cast aspersions over it. Hell, I'm in the midst of a reread of Blood Meridian. Oh no, yeah, I'm not saying, I'm not making fun of anybody. I just thought it was funny to like brag about something. Yeah, as far as I'm concerned, I've said this many times. Calvin and Hobbes is as fruitful as Dostoevsky or Steinbeck, as Wolverine, stuff. So I love it all. And the Hardy Boys stuff, I know I read them growing up, but I swear I don't remember them at all. I remember comic books intimately, but I think that's because, you read the comic books over and over and over again. I don't think I did that with Hardy Boys. So I think they were kind of, I hate to use the term disposable literature, but that's kind of what they were. So reading them now, I just picked up one the other day. It's fun. It's like, I know that these were made supposed to be for kids, quote unquote, but to be completely honest, a kid, like the level of reading a kid did in the 50s or 60s is not the level that people are at today. I think the Hardy Boys would be maybe not high school, but definitely not like third grade, which is I think probably what they were made for. So that was kind of an eye opener. I'm like, yeah, I don't know how many third graders could read this stuff, which is a bit of a shame, but times they do a change. It is a good chuckle about the 38 Hardy Boys. Yeah, that's my goal. And I really want to do it at a dinner party, a really fancy dinner party. Now, I've never been invited to a really fancy dinner party, so the first goal is find someone that invites me to a fancy dinner party, so then I can talk about it. I better get on that pretty quickly, though. I don't know where people that have dinner parties hang out. Oh, I shouldn't have done that. Alrighty. Yeah. Well, no, I think that's okay. Seventh to eighth grade these days. It's strange. Math and English have almost swapped their positions of prominence. Interesting. Yeah, I will claim or feign ignorance because I really don't know. I don't have kids, so it's hard for me I'm just kind of guessing. I don't really know what they do these days. I just know that over the years, things, literacy rates and certain things are kind of unavoidable to see online. With AI, it doesn't help, obviously. You know, the funny thing about AI with this kind of stuff is right now AI still needs, I would say, it doesn't need proper English, obviously, but coherent English. At a certain point, there'll be such a shorthand used like for AI prompts that I kind of feel like it'll be its own language. I recall learning multiplication and division in 3rd or 4th grade, but my son was doing both in first grade. Wow. Yeah, I don't remember doing that for sure. Yeah, and obviously the schools you go to are gonna vary greatly for sure. Alrighty, I'm going to be stopping here in a few minutes. Well, at least I got some of this page done. Oy vey. So I'm going to just make all of this black. My ink is getting pretty thick. I'm going to put some water in it. Probably, I might make this whole thing black in the background. I don't know what good it does really to not have it in black, but I would rather start out where it's not 100% black and then take a look at it and then make the call then. Alrighty, I think that's good for the night. Well, thanks everybody for popping in. I appreciate it. Nothing newsworthy, I would say. Just plugging away on issue 4. This is page 17, 18, something like that. So I'm getting about halfway done. I'm not going to try to predict when this is going to get done. It's the summer, there's a lot of stuff going on, but I would like to think that, let's see, July, August. I think inking I'll be done by the end of August, and coloring along the way. So August, September, maybe I'll letter in September, kind of clean things up, and maybe October is a campaign. So I'll be doing a campaign for issue 4, and then a reprint of issues 1, 2, and 3, because those are almost out. I only have a few issues of each of those. So anyway, I'll keep people posted. That's still a ways away. Thanks again, everybody. Appreciate it, and have a good night. Bye.